The top 5 things that I see people get wrong when trying to turbocharge a QR25. Aloha, my name is Ed. Now this is my 2004 Nissan Sentra SER Specv, but this also applies to if you're running an Altima. This probably applies to you as well. A lot of people that are turbocharging their cars don't have experience doing this and don't have experience doing this on the platform. A lot of people don't realize how much extra work is in putting a turbo kit. They see a $900 turbo kit on eBay and they think it's really easy, and then they get to it and they realize it's a shit ton of work. But there's a lot of small little nuances and details that do matter when trying to turbocharge these cars, and I've seen so many people have different issues with these cars that we're gonna go over that stuff. So if you plan to turbocharge your QR25, you do not make these same mistakes. All right, so the first thing is your intake manifold. The intake manifold that's on the Specv, where you have the butterfly valves inside, you need to remove those butterfly valves. What happens is the boost will not let the butterfly valves open up. It will be fighting each other. And so if you're gonna still use the metal manifold and not convert to one without butterfly valves, you need to remove the butterfly valves. It's pretty easy. You just take off the top part of the manifold, unscrew the butterfly valves, and then just put everything back together with a new gasket and you're good. It is best if you remove the rod in there and then you thread the hole, but it is possible to just leave the rod in there and remove the actual butterfly valve itself. The butterflies in there look like this, the little flappers that open up inside the intake manifold. Number 2 is not running the proper spark plugs. So a lot of people will turbocharge their car and they won't really think about the spark plugs. But for the spark plugs, you need to go one step colder for a basic turbo setup, and you need to properly gap the spark plugs for a turbo setup. So you actually need to kind of like gap them closer together, and it can change a little bit depending on how you're running, but the gap does need to be closer together. You can find the proper gaps in different groups and stuff like that. If the gap is too big, what happens is the spark pretty much kind of blows itself out and you end up with a misfire. And while I'm talking about spark plugs, don't run these. Number 3, improper cooling for the car. So you don't necessarily need to go with a big fancy thick radiator, although it does help. But more importantly, you really want to do the SR20 thermostat mod, which I do have a video on that. Go ahead and watch that video. But if you want to save your head gasket, do the SR20 thermostat mod, because you're going to be generating a lot more heat with this a lot quicker, and so it's a lot more critical. Number 4 is not running check valves in your vacuum line. So these are valves that go on your vacuum lines, which basically allows air to go one way but not the other way. So you want to be able to create vacuum, but you don't want to be pushing boost to things that don't need boost. Like your brake booster, for example, you don't want boost going into your brake booster. You only want it to see vacuum. So that's why you'd use one of these guys, which you can get these on my store right now. At least the one for the brake booster. I don't have the small ones in yet, but we'll get there. Number 5, and this is probably one of the more critical components of this, not properly getting your PCV system correct. So the factory PCV system goes from the valve cover to the intake manifold, and then it goes from the other side of the valve cover to the intake. That doesn't work in a boosted application because you just end up building boost inside your engine, not in your combustion chamber. And then what happens is it has to fill up all that air, and so you have a hard time building boost also. Then you end up with a bunch of oil leaks and stuff like it. It's really bad. Basically what you need to do is cap off your intake where it would normally go to your intake. On the intake manifold, where the PCV hose normally goes to the manifold, just plug that up. Put a rubber cap like this on there. Then your valve cover your engine needs to vent. Your valve cover needs to vent. So then you just vent those hoses On my setup, I have them going to a catch can and then a little filter on top of the catch can. But your engine valve cover needs to vent, needs to breathe. When you're putting boost through it, it doesn't give it that opportunity to do that. Cap off everything on the intake side, so that way you don't have any boost leaks, any vacuum leaks, stuff like that, and free vent your valve cover. So you take this off, you have the vent on one side, the back vent. Just run those hoses to a catch can, put a vent thingy on there. That's the easiest way to do it. It is possible to do a setup where you have some sort of like PCV system kind of still in place. It gets a little more complicated, and I like simplicity of this because not a whole lot can go wrong. All right, bonus item for you. Couple little side notes and bonus items. Getting the right size injectors for your turbo kit is kind of essential, and for the type of fuel you're running. So if you're running like E85, you need a much bigger injector. But if you're running regular pump fuel, you're gonna be running a smaller injector. Bigger injectors don't equal more power. You need the proper size injector for the type of fuel and the type of setup you're running. Vacuum leaks are a huge issue when you're running boost, even naturally aspirated, but they seem to come a lot more apparent when you're running boost. I've seen so many issues with people's cars all due to a vacuum leak, and they start thinking it's a throttle body and stuff like that. And they start doing relearns, and they spend all this time trying to figure out what the hell's wrong with their car. And a lot of times it's just a simple vacuum leak. You don't always easily see these vacuum hoses because some of them are buried behind the engine. So how do you find these vacuum leaks? And you do that with a smoke machine. So if you don't own one of these, I highly recommend getting one of these. I do have a link in the description. I don't care if you buy this brand or if you buy it from here or not, but if you're going to be doing work on your own car, you really need one of these, or you need a buddy that has one of these. But that buddy probably just wants you to buy one yourself so you don't keep borrowing his tools. Especially because your buddy probably loans out half of his tools and never sees them again. I do have a video on the smoke machine. It just sends smoke through the vacuum line and the intake. The smoke machine is also great for finding boost leaks. I've found boost leaks in my car with it. It's good for figuring out evap issues. Smoke machine is definitely worth it. Buy a smoke machine. If you already have a smoke machine, then fix your grounds, because that's probably your other issue. This video is not meant to be any kind of advertisement. So if this is your first time trying to turbocharge a car, whether you're thinking about it, whether you already have some of the parts or all the parts, or even started the process, I've seen so many people try to do it on a daily. And what they think is going to be a one-day or weekend project ends up going through months of issues and trying to resolve them. And a lot of it is pre-existing issues that either they didn't fix or just didn't really show up until they started stressing the engine more. So yeah, I definitely don't recommend going turbocharge on a daily. If you want to go turbo, find yourself a daily car that you can drive until you get everything all nicely set up. Turbocharging is not easy. It's not fun. Don't do it.